When daylight came, he left the house and made his way to a lonely place. Here the Lord is indirectly giving a model for all time, and it was picked up by the monastic centuries. I remember way back in France hearing this from my novice master years ago. Le moine est celui qui veille. The monk is one who watches, who keeps watch. There has always been that itch to be awake when the world is asleep in the monastic life, both male and female. Many monasteries have very early vigils. Others, particularly female ones, have night adoration. Lamps lit in a dark world that slumbers, all counterbalancing the powers of darkness. And of course, Old Nick knows it. He's therefore been fairly keen on bringing back nearer norms of daylight to night rise in monastic communities and convents throughout the world. And he's been fairly successful in many, because in practice what used to happen in the pre-dawn now happens in the later hours, things which weren't there 50 years ago. It went from the Goggle box to the Google box, and now people who are actually consecrated to prayer are in practice quite often consecrated to modern media and social communications. It's not overnight that happened, but it's something that subtly, very subtly, bit by one small bit comes in, and without our noticing is in, and there to stay. Now, I saw that happening already fairly early on, when I could see that the clergy were among the first to get into things like smartphones and these new things that were going around, Twitter and all that kind of thing. And I was quite surprised. And I thought to myself, is this going to change their inner life? Because in practice, what happens in this situation is that when a person is alone, at last, that person will not have the instinct to do what the Lord does in this gospel, go into a lonely place and there pray, but go into any comfortable chair and open the smartphone. And then time will be swallowed up, because once there, one stays there. And the more things that one is linked up with, the more one has difficulty, unconsciously of course, of getting out of there. Availability to all channels, but the availability to the one that we're serving and communicating to others is gravely damaged. It's not only a problem for the consecrated, it's a problem for pious souls in general. I've noticed that pious souls in general are very aware of all that's out there being passed around on WhatsApp and all the holy sites. It's good to be aware, but they also are unaware of the bigger issue at times, that they too are not alone. They can't be alone because time is too precious. They have to catch up. And even in bed, they're still catching up. Where does it leave you? I have no idea what you have in the way of communication outside there, but I do know that we're all in the same boat of time, the same moment in time right now that we have in common with all the universe, but we only have it for a while. And the choice is ours. Do I want availability unto Him, or unto all these, many of which I don't know, because it's not good to be in communication with people that one doesn't know all the time. We don't know what demons they carry and indirectly transmit. Some are nasty senders of messages. The internet is not always grace-filled or even truth-filled. And so I propose another model. Be aware that time, believe it or not, is running out. And at the end of it, when we look back at our last breath over our whole series of breaths, we will ask ourselves, was I sacrificed to all this? Missing the big point that now I face. Or will I, before it happens, say, no, halt, I'm not going there. I will do as the Lord did, chisel out quality time and be alone to hear the Father and feel Him. For we feel less of the silent vibes when we have heavy ones. One last point. When sent on retreat just before ordination to the priesthood, because we used to do our ordination retreats in the monastery next to us, the mother house of the Olivetan Benedictines, Monte Oliveto, I had some reading material. One was on victimhood from the victims of the Sacred Heart that we had a ministry to. One of the most austere congregations in the world, actually, extremely harsh, but holy nuns in France. And the other happened to be one from their own source of Olivetan Benedictines, combining the active and contemplative life, and the other was from a Mexican source, a mystic, Conchita, who founded a series of things and had these communications from the Lord regarding the priesthood. And a word from her, from the Lord through her, hit me very strongly with regard to the way that the time of a consecrated soul, a priest, is all consecrated and belongs to him, and that one must not therefore farm it out to certain people alone, spending much time in social interchange. As we would say, it makes us too thinly spread. We forget the sacrality of our time as consecrated souls. We become just like other people in a social interchange. And time again goes. Conversations, after a while, deteriorate. We know it full well. So we need to be able to say politely, no, I'm not available, also to invitations. It's not easy sometimes, but a whole evening is a whole evening of irreversible, irretrievable time. We can save souls in an evening by prayer and adoration and listening to the Lord. We can waste merit in useless conversation, which eventually becomes not without sin. All this to say, the Lord gave us the model. If we start in the early hours in that listening, generally speaking, we start well. If we plunge from bed into talk and work, we don't get it back. And old Nick knows it full well.
He is the Lord. He is the Lord. He is risen from the dead, and He is the Lord. Every knee shall bow, every tongue mercy, Lord.